I remember the very first time I felt utterly incompetent. I've felt incompetent lots of times, but I remember when I felt, this one moment I felt utterly, you ever felt utterly incompetent? Like you just do not know what you're doing? It was 17 years ago, and I faced a moment that I knew I was gonna be able to get through it. I just had no previous experience for how I was gonna get through it. I can tell you the day. It's how locked in my mind it is. It was February 19th, 2006. It was the day that I put this in my car for the very first time. See, some of you know what I'm talking about. 2 reasons I felt incompetent. First, you ever tried to install one of these? I questioned my manhood, man. I was bent up like a pretzel at one point, putting weight here, saying lots of not safe for church words, just saying. But what I learned real quick is all those feelings of how incompetent I felt to even just install that thing, man, it was nothing compared to what I would feel when I put my little Sienna Ray in that car seat. I remember that, putting my little girl in there. And I remember the convergence of conflicting emotions bringing each of our 3 children home. On one hand, this sense of awe and wonder and hope for their future, and wondering what is God gonna lead them to be one day? And then living right next to all of that is a complete and utter sense of helplessness, borderline terror at the thought, oh, I'm responsible for this human. I mean, just a week before, we couldn't decide whether we wanted Chinese or pizza, and now I'm handed a human. And the question I've asked 1,000 times since, and that every parent and guardian asks at some level is this: am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? See, that question never really goes away for parents, does it? And this is what I want to talk about for a few minutes today. We need to talk about parenting. And so parents, guardians, grandparents, I think today is going to be super helpful. Just lean in, take notes. I think it's gonna be super helpful. I also realize that for some of you, even talking about parenting brings up a bit of an ache to your heart, a sting to your soul. Because you're not a parent, and you've longed to be, and you've desired to be, and you've prayed, and for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. I just want you to know our church loves you and stands with you and wants to do whatever we can to support you in that journey. I also realize that some of you are single today. You don't have kids, but here's what I want to say. No matter kind of what your situation, everything we talk about today, I think are things that you can apply as well to the nephews and nieces and children of friends that you have that you love and that you just want to invest in and that you want to see them thrive. You know, when our team was digging into some of the latest research about the landscape of relationships as we were getting ready for this series, they came across some data related to young adults and their relationship with their families. And when I saw it, I'm telling you, first of all, it surprised me. Secondly, it just broke my heart. And this is it. Some of the latest research says that 25% of young adults report having no relationship with their family. How many more have strained? That's just no. That's 1 out of every 4. And if you're a younger family today, man, I want to just offer up some guidance. Course, we do what we can at least so that that is not the destiny for you. And then feels like that stat applies to you because you've been estranged from your kids, or maybe you haven't spoken in a long time. I just want to offer some hope up today. I want to give you some hope from the scriptures about how to move forward. And I want to do that by starting in Psalm 127. I'd love for you to turn there. And if you don't have a Bible, that's not a problem. There's some of the seats around you if you're at one of our campuses. It's page 473 if you're using the Bibles at our seats. Use your mobile device, scroll there. Really doesn't matter. I just want you to get to Psalm 127. I want you to see this, page 473. And this psalm, as you're going to see here in just a second, this psalm it's really written in the context of families and home life. And that'll be real clear towards the end of the psalm. And so it's only a few verses. It's 5 verses. I want to read these 5 verses. I want to start with the first couple, though, and then we'll kind of just go from there. Let's look at verse 1, Psalm 127, verse 1. It says, unless the Lord builds a house, the work of the builders is wasted. Unless the Lord protects a city, guarding it with sentries is do no good. It's useless for you to work so hard from early morning until late at night, anxiously working for food to eat. For God loves, he gives rest to his loved ones. Now just pause for a second. See, guys, the writer here is saying that something that every parent already intuitively knows. You're not really in control of very much, are you? Doesn't take long to figure that one out. But you really don't control too much. And the psalm is reminding us of something fundamental. We can anxiously try to control every detail of our home. We can anxiously try to manage our kids. We can anxiously try to control and protect our kids and control them. But we're the ones bound up, aren't we? And it's actually a freeing thought, an empowering thought, that our responsibility is simply to create an environment of safety and love and grace and point them to the God who loves them. And there's a certain peace that comes on the other side of saying, God, I'm gonna do my part in how I raise and I parent them, but God, I need you to build the house. That's what verse 1 said. I need you to build the house. God, I need you to do the thing in their heart that I cannot do. I need you to do the thing in their life that I cannot do. I can create the environment for it, but God, I need you to build the house. And then it goes on. Look at verse 3. Children are a gift from the Lord. Some of you are like, you haven't met my child. Let's keep going. Let's just keep going. Children are a gift from the Lord. They are a reward from him. Children born to a young man are like, love this, arrows in a warrior's hands. How joyful is the man whose quiver is full of them. He will not be put to shame when he confronts his accusers at the city gates. Now, I love this imagery here. I love any time you can pull out a weapon in church. And I know some of you are tracking with me because I've seen pictures of what you guys are doing right now, hunting and all that. And so I know some of you got your bow and arrow out right now and, in your home and you're trying to hunt deer and all that. But here's the image, right? The image here is of our kids they're like arrows. They're arrows. And that's a real interesting word picture. See, an arrow is designed to what? Ultimately, an arrow is designed, this is gonna be fun. I'm about to pull this. You guys are freaking out. I see it right now. We did a series about anxiety. Some of y'all right now need to go back to it. By the way, under one of your seats right now is an apple. Go ahead and see if no, I'm just kidding. An arrow is designed to fly, right? At the end of the day, the arrow is designed to leave the bow, or else it's not actually fulfilling its purpose. Arrow is designed to fly, and ultimately, an arrow is designed to do what? To hit the target, its intended target. You don't see anybody just walking through the woods like, bounce, you know what I mean? You have a target in mind. And see, the question that this psalm raises for parents is this: what's your target? What are you aiming for related to how you're parenting your kids? What's the target? Where do you hope and pray that arrow ends up one day? Because when you don't know what you're aiming at, when you don't know where the target is for you and your family, for the kids that you're raising, you're not gonna know where to point the bow. You won't know which direction to even point them in. See, one of the most important questions a parent can ask is this: what do I want my relationship to look like one day with my kids when they're older? What do I want my relationship to look like one day when my kids are out of the house? What do I want my relationship with my kids to look like when they're 30, not just 13? Because that's parenting with the end in mind. And there's a target that the scriptures give us that I think is a pretty good starting point for where to aim. It's in Proverbs 29:17, it says this. It says, discipline your children. We'll get back to that. Don't freak out on the word discipline. We'll come back to that in a minute. Discipline your children, and they will, future, target, they will give you peace of mind and make your heart glad. Now, Proverbs are not promises. Proverbs are principles. In other words, it's not a promise, it's always gonna happen. It's a principle saying in general, this is how life works. You point your family in the right direction. You know what you're aiming at. If you parent with the end in mind, it's saying, look, you will experience relationships marked with peace and a glad heart. Is there any better target than the target of them and your relationship with your kids that is rich and healthy and thriving and full of peace and gladness? A target that when they're 30, they still love to be around you, even though they don't have to be anymore. See, if you need a target, this proverb is giving us one. And here's how I'd kind of frame it. Parent to preserve the relationship. That's the target. That the decisions we make as a parent are done with the intention and done with the foresight and done with the filter, what will preserve the relationship. Not parent to preserve your reputation, because we can do that. Not parent to preserve the rules. Not parent to preserve control. Parent to preserve the relationship. You can frame this however you want to frame it. Reword it however you want to reword it, but the principle is to point the bow in the direction that sets us up for a healthy, active relationship with our children when they have a choice. See, right now when they're in your home, they don't have a choice. You hold the keys, literally for some of you. You hold the car keys. They have to get along with you. But how do we back up as a parent in a way that sets the stage for them to get along with us even when they don't have to love being around us? And if that's what you desire, there's gonna be two things that you have to pay close attention to. Two things that you're gonna have to pay close attention to, that all of us are gonna have to pay close attention to if we want a parent to preserve the relationship. And the two things are this: you're gonna have to pay attention to the words you use in your home, and you're gonna have to pay attention to the boundaries you create. Those two things are critical to pointing towards a target. So let's just talk about those real quick. You're gonna have to pay attention to the words you speak. We preserve the relationship with the words we speak. You know something interesting about this psalm that we just read? It's debated as to who wrote it. You'll see at the very top, actually, if you look at it, at the very top in italics, right by the 127, it says, a song for pilgrims ascending to Jerusalem. Then it says this, a psalm of Solomon. Now, what's interesting is Solomon was King David's son, who eventually became king of Israel after David passed. And we know that Solomon's father, David, wrote not the majority, but close to the majority of the Psalms. He wrote 73 of the 150 Psalms. So David writes a ton of Psalms. And some scholars think here, when it says a Psalm of Solomon, it's actually describing a Psalm written by David about his son, Solomon. In other words, a Psalm about Solomon, a Psalm of Solomon. It's David articulating with his words his pride and love and joy of his son. It's David speaking affirmation over his son that he wanted everybody to know. He's saying, you've brought me joy, and I want people to know it. You are a gift from God. You are a reward. Remember the language he used? You are a reward. You are my prized son. Now, years later, Solomon wrote down hundreds of wisdom statements that we call Proverbs. We just read one a moment ago. And one of the Proverbs that Solomon wrote was this one. Proverbs 18:21 says, the tongue, that's words, speech. The tongue has the power of death and life. Now let me ask you a question. Do you think Solomon knew how true that statement was? He had the words of his own father echoing around in his heart. Words that brought him life. He knew the power that words play. You know the power that words can play, don't you? I mean, words can build up and words can tear down. Words can heal and words can hurt. Words can encourage and words can discourage. Guys, I couldn't begin to count all the grown men and women that I've spoken to over the years who still carry around scars decades later from words that were spoken to them from their parents that cut them like a knife. I couldn't begin to count all the grown men and women that I've spoken to over the years who carry around an ache in their soul, 25 years later, an ache in their soul over the silence they experienced from their parents. They just wanted to hear, I love you. They just want to hear, I'm proud of you. They wanted to hear what David said to Solomon. But they were starved of life-giving words. Our kids have an insatiable appetite for life-giving words. Your kids have an appetite for it. You know, I can't tell you the first time I ever heard my parents tell me that they love me. And the reason I can't tell you the first time is because I always heard it. I just always heard it. I always felt it in their presence, and I always heard it from their mouth. It was just a part of our home environment. Man, it was safe. It was full of a lot of grace. But my dad is a different story. My dad could tell you everything about the first time he heard his dad, my grandfather, say, I love you. My dad was in his early 20s. It was his wedding day. And my grandfather had a heart attack just a few days before the wedding and was in the hospital on their wedding day. And so as they left the wedding reception and headed for their honeymoon, my mom and dad stopped by the hospital to see my grandfather. And it happened for the first time. My grandfather looked at my dad and said, "I love you, son." My dad can tell you everything about that day. What was it about that moment that suddenly triggered my grandfather to express what he had been silent about for over 2 decades? You know what it was. He had a heart attack. And when you have a heart attack, things get put into perspective real quick, don't they? But here's the point. Guys, why would we wait? Why would we wait for a health scare to finally get our attention about the unique role we play in the lives of our children with the words we speak? I don't want it to be a heart attack for you. I don't want it to be a health scare. I don't want it to be a tragedy, a disaster that finally wakes us up to the reality we need to say some things to our kids to speak life into them. And I'm so grateful, man, that my dad decided to break that pattern as he sought to love me like Jesus. If I were to have my cell phone right now and pull it out, I could bring up my voicemails and I could show you right now. I've got probably, 15 or so voicemails from my dad right now on my phone that go all the way back to 2013. The most recent is from 7 days ago. They are the most important voicemails I have. I haven't erased them. I will not erase them. They are my dad's words. If you were to take my phone and try to erase them, I will fight you. Kung fu grip on those things. I don't care. Pastor goes out the door, we're fighting. And you know what those voicemails are full of? All the way back from 2013. You know why I want to erase them? It's because my dad in those voicemails is just doing for me what David did for his son Solomon all those years ago. It's just full of him. Some of them are 30 seconds, some of them are 3 minutes of him saying, "Jason, I love you so much. Jason, you bring me so much joy. I'm just thinking about you today." There's a lot of people who've expressed kind words to me over the years and said some really encouraging and meaningful things. I don't have any of those saved on my phone, though. And here's why. Because not all words are weighted equally, are they? And hearing words from your parents weighs differently than anyone else. Do you want a parent to preserve the relationship? It starts with the words we speak. And if you need a place to start, just start here. These are the 3 most important things your kids can hear from you. If you need a starting place, I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm sorry. Critically important to be said from you, for your kids to hear these things. I love you, I'm proud of you, I'm sorry. Some of you look at them, sorry, like, why I'm sorry? Here's why. Because here's why I'm sorry is so important. When you own your mistakes as a parent, it creates safety in the home. It demonstrates a strength and humility that we don't expect each other to be perfect here in our home. But we do what we can to make it right, and we own it. That creates an emotionally safe place in your home, and you're modeling that. If we parent to preserve the relationship, we will pay attention to the words we use. We will be indiscriminate in expressing our love and pride because our words have the power and life and death, but we will also preserve the relationship with the boundaries we set. Remember, that was the second thing. We preserve the relationship with the boundaries we set. Our kids need and want our direction. They need you to be a friend, but they need you to be a friend when they're 30, not when they're 11. They need direction, and they'll never ask you for it. Be like, they never asked me for it. Yeah, of course they haven't. You know, one of the most fundamental questions our kids are asking is, where are the boundaries? Where are the boundaries? And I promise you, this is not something you want to outsource to culture. This almost seems counterintuitive because for some reason we tend to think that our kids will resist boundaries, but they are looking to you to help them know where the guardrails are. This is how it says it in the New Testament. In the book of Hebrews 12:11, it says, "No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful." Of course, it doesn't. It's bringing you in, it's creating boundaries. Listen to this. Later on, though, the future, it produces a harvest. Something good comes from it. A harvest of righteousness and peace for those who've been trained by it. See, the point of discipline, you gotta catch this. The point of discipline is not just behavior modification. You know, I learned real quick as a dad that I could get my kids to fall in line by intimidating them. I'm ashamed to say that, but it's just true. I'm bigger. I will win. But behavior modification, so I can get them to shut down, I can get them to do what I want them to do, but I can get them to modify their behavior, but behavior modification isn't the foundation of any healthy relationship, is it? Do you have any thriving relationships with anyone whose sole focus is on how well you behave? That's a rhetorical question. No, you don't. When the end goal is to preserve the relationship, you're gonna set up rules, you're gonna set up boundaries, you're gonna hold accountable, but you're gonna do it with seeing the difference between punishing and disciplining. Two different things. Punishing is getting back. Punishing is getting back at your kid for embarrassing you, for disrespecting you. And you punish them to make you feel what you felt. And you know where that leads? I'll tell you where it leads. The Apostle Paul in the New Testament said where it leads. Listen to this. This is in Colossians 3:21. Fathers, do not aggravate your children. They'll become discouraged. Discouragement. See, there's two implications here that I just want to point out. Two ways that I think we can aggravate and discourage our kids. The first way that we discourage our kids is by overloading them with rules. There's a rule for everything. Just overloading them. You know, one of the ways that Jenny and I, we tried to avoid going down this road here has been to sit down and determine what the felonies are. That's the language we've used. What are the felonies? Some of you like that. So let's agree on what the felonies are, but let's keep the felony list to just a few. But the felonies we got to address. And let's just focus on those. When the kids were little, the felonies were pretty simple. The felonies were if you hurt someone else or if you put yourself in harm's way. So when we're going on a walk and you step out into the street, felony. But we only had a couple of those. And we needed to do that. Here's why. Because without that clarity, you know what I found myself doing? I know you're so different than me. Here's what I found myself doing though. I was getting on to them about everything. About running in the house. About talking loudly. Or things that kids do. And I was the one worked up. And as the kids got older, the felonies changed in middle school and high school. And pretty much just simply, don't lie, don't be disrespectful. You gotta tell the truth. Relationships are based and strengthened on truth and honesty. And don't be disrespectful. We honor people here in our home. And we just wanted to limit, here's the point, we just wanted to limit how many times we had to find ourselves saying stop or don't. Because I could real easily slip into making a rule about everything. Nitpicking our kids about the way that they wore their clothes or how loud they played their music or 1,000 other things. But I've seen too many kids, man, discouraged because they just can't seem to ever not be breaking a rule. Are we tracking? Second way we can discourage, I think sometimes it's just then how we correct. Sometimes we can overload them. Sometimes it's just how we correct them when the rules are broken. The word there for aggravate, when it says aggravate, that word in the Greek, the New Testament was originally written in Greek, that word also means stir up, stir it up. Just stir up your kids. I've done this, man. When we just dig in to make a point, when we just keep harping on our kids, I'll admit, man, there are moments in my parenting that bring me the most remorse is when I walked away from Jesus on this one. And here's what I've noticed. My most natural tendency, again, this is for me, I think it's probably true for a lot of us. My most natural tendency when I need to address behavior that's kind of gone off the rails a little bit when they're breaking a boundary, here's my most natural tendency in that moment. My tendency is to step forward in that moment, to address it, to shut it down. I'm usually frustrated, I'm angry, and when my first step is forward, the thunder's coming. And I want to address the behavior. I want to shut it down. Those are the times I am most likely to dig in and nitpick and harp. But the moments that have gone best for me are the moments where something happens, and I step back. I just step back for a second, collect myself, and then address it. I just step back when my impulse is to step forward. Guys, when the boundaries are broken, it's up to us as parents and guardians and grandparents, as uncles and aunts to step back. And I want you to notice that we talked about words before we talked about boundaries, didn't we? That was intentional. See, our words and the assurance of our love is what sets the stage for correction. I was at the Mannheim Farm Show last week, and if you don't know what the Mannheim Farm Show is, essentially the state of Alabama moves to Mannheim for a week. And I love it. It is my people. And so Solomon, my 5-year-old, somebody like, I thought you said a 17. I did, I got a 17 and I just said 5. Pray for me. My son, my 5-year-old Solomon and I were walking around and we walked by a blacksmith, because that's what you do in Alabama, right? In the Manheim Farm Show. We're walking by a blacksmith and he's heating up this iron and then he's molding and shaping the iron after it's heated up, and we're watching him do this process. Did you know that if you don't heat up the iron and you just try to bend it with your will, you put it and you begin to bend it, you know as strong as iron is, you can break it. It needs heat before it can be molded. We can break our kids. We can break their spirit. If we try to bend them to our will, we try to set up boundaries without the heat of our affection and love. When our kids are assured of our love and our support, that they are safe, we have now the environment to shape them, to bend, to direct them. If you want a parent to preserve the relationship, speak life-giving words again and again to your kids and set boundaries to point them the way forward and what it means to pursue God. See, here's the question that never really goes away. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And what the scriptures tell us is that if you are parenting to preserve the relationship, answering the most fundamental questions of, do you love me? And where are the boundaries? Then just be encouraged today. Yeah, you're on the right track. You're doing better than you think you are. Guys, I don't know how it is for you, but I can say for me, there's no other area of my life that can be more of a source of shame than how I've treated my kids. That's truth. The times that I've dropped the ball, the moments that I've yelled out in anger, the moments that I've stepped forward instead of stepping back. You know, in those moments, and what I want to encourage you, if that's true for you, what I want to encourage you with today is something that Peter encouraged the first followers of Jesus with 2,000 years ago when he wrote this. He just said, love covers a multitude of sins. See, this works on 2 different levels. First, Jesus Christ's love and forgiveness for you, for me, it covers all of our sins, including the ones we commit against our own family. And second, if our homes are marked with the love of God, it can cover over the messiness that exists in all of our homes. Here's why this truth is so freeing. Kids don't need perfect parents. Your kids and your grandkids, the kids that you are trying to influence, they don't need perfect parents. They need loving parents. Love covers a multitude of sins. Parents who are willing to do our part in preserving the relationship while we point them to follow a perfect Savior, Jesus, and trust him with our lives. And look, I realize that for some of you, the arrow is gone. The arrow's launched. It's already launched. And it didn't land where you hoped it would. You didn't really have a target in mind. Or you feel like it's too late now because you look back and you regret the words that have been spoken. Or you look back how you stirred up your kids and discouraged them, and you could see it written on their faces. I said this last week, I will say it again. I want you to hear, if that's you, if you're feeling that any today, I want you to hear me loud and clear, man. There's no shame at the foot of the cross of Jesus. There's only grace and love and forgiveness of God and new beginnings. I'll remind you today the good news of Jesus, that he makes us new. The old is gone, the new has come. And as we trust him and walk towards him, our futures don't have to look like our past. He can transform our lives. He can transform our thinking. He can transform our relationships. And no, you can't change the past. It's not an option. But today, by the power and the grace of God with dependence on him, you can choose to speak life-giving words to your children today, whether they are 6 years old or 46 years old. You can send that text. You can make that call. You can go over and say, I love you, some of you for the first time. I told you about my dad and my grandfather. And see, I never knew that side of my grandfather. I never knew that side of him. I heard my grandfather tell me he loved me a bunch. And I heard my grandfather tell my dad he loved him a bunch. I watched my grandfather slowly open up his life to trusting and following Jesus. He went over 2 decades, over 20 years, without giving my dad life-giving words. But then God began to change him. And that change affected my dad and affected me. And it's affecting my children now. That change my grandfather made had a generational effect in a godly direction. And here's why I'm telling you that. It's never too late. It's never too late. I read a quote the other day that said, "The days are long, but the years are short." And I thought that had to be a parent who wrote that. There are long days, aren't there? Sleepless nights, arguments and drama, lots of prayers prayed, long days. But the years fly by. So let's be people who focus on the years, the target, in the middle of our long days. Let's keep our focus on the target that we desire for our family, that we would be a family defined by love and peace and gladness in our home one day. And let's parent to preserve the relationship. You will never, ever regret that.